Welcome Bryan Pentelow to this Promoting Yorkshire Authors author interview. Bryan writes science fiction and children's books, but today I'd like to concentrate on the books about the dragon Sprocket, introduced in the first book in the series titled Sprocket and the Great Northern Forest. Can you tell me a little bit about the book and why you wrote it?
Yes, it's about a dragon being discovered in a scrapyard in the frozen wastes of the north of England. Obviously not as frozen as many might think. It certainly wasn't as frozen as my wife thought when we first moved up here. We are both from the south.
Right, whereabouts?
I'm from Northamptonshire, she's from Cheltenham.
The book uses northern dialect, particularly Yorkshire. Quite Wallace and Gromit, I thought. Why did you set it here in north?
Well, we live in the north now, in Leeds. All of my family live up and around in the north. I like it in the north.
Right.
Having grown up in the south, it takes a long time to make friends in the south. They're not terribly trusting. We lived for 12 years in Northampton, and in 12 months in Leeds had made more friends in Leeds than we had in 12 years in Northampton. I set the book up here because I feel more at home up here now. The characters in my mind are Wallace and Gromit type characters. I've always seen certainly this book and also the later books as an animated cartoon series. And I have tried to make it accessible for adults as well as children. Over the years, I've read to my children, I've read to my grandchildren, and I've read books that I enjoyed and they enjoyed. I've also read books that they enjoyed and I hated reading. I wanted to write something which the poor benighted adult that had to sit there night after night with a bedtime story wouldn't feel uncomfortable with.
The book is for children, so who are your target audience, like age range, etc.?
My target audience is as wide as it can possibly go. It's for anyone that enjoys fantasy. Children like big words. I didn't write down to a particular level. If you get with primary school children, one of the joys in their lives is dinosaurs. All dinosaurs have names at least a yard long.
Yes.
And yet all the children can read them and pronounce them and love them. Yeah. So I didn't cramp the vocabulary for a particular reading age.
How about reading a little bit from Sprocket and the Great Northern Forest?
Yes, I've got Sprocket and the Great Northern Forest, and this is the opening of the book. It was a dark and oily night, the sort you get at the back end of November, when clouds slime down off the fells, trying to make up their minds whether to rain, sleet, or simply hang about aimlessly as fog. Blackguard the crow sat on a telephone pole by the towpath of the Great Eastern Canal. He humped his feathers against a nasty little breeze which sidled round the corner of number 4 plant with chemicals on its breath. Blackguard coughed. A hunched figure in a glistening black rain cape with the hood up froze in its furtive progress along the towpath and pressed closer into the shadows of the corrugated iron fence. The figure bent deeper into the gloom and clutched a shoebox tied with hairy string tight under its arm. The shoebox clicked and ticked quietly. The crow watched the rain cape as it greased past the telephone pole and edged around the bulge in the fence where nails had rusted through and a pile of old car tyres inside had fallen over and pushed the rusting sheets out. Just as the figure slid from sight around the curve of the fence, a soul-rending screech split the night and a bolt of black lightning ripped along the towpath. The rain cape jumped 2 feet in the air, staggered backwards, teetered along the worn edge of stones of the canal, caught its balance, and finally slumped against the fence, where it lay wheezing horribly. Evil cat, thought Blackguard. Always where it shouldn't be, serves it right. With his right eye, the crow watched the ragged shadow of Yorkshire, the Eurochem factory cat, slow, stop, spit, then slink into the gloom of the railway bridge with a last flash of malevolent eyes. Meanwhile, with his left eye, he watched the dark figure as it scrabbled at a loose piece of fence and rammed the shoebox into the resultant gap. This done, it pushed the sheep back and scuttled out of sight around the corner into Pudding Founder's Lane. Interesting, thought Blackguard. Very occult, crows think like this, believing themselves to be magical and closely associated with the dark arts. But really, they're just large black birds with an overactive imagination. The crow carefully scratched an itch with one long claw, ruffled his feathers, then taking an extra firm grip on the pole with both feet, dozed off.
You've written a number of Sprocket books. Do you want to tell me about them?
Having written the first one before the birth of my first grandchild, the others were written specifically for them as they appeared in this world.
Right.
The second one actually introduces what is now known as the Fearsome Four. That's my 4 grandchildren.
Right.
I've used their middle Christian names so that they have plausible deniability if they choose not to be associated with the Sprocket stories. The stories all have a happy ending-ish. The baddies all come to a just end.
Right.
Although in many cases they are redeemed and go on to a much better and much nicer life. As far as my memory serves me, only one of them meets, shall we say, a somewhat bloodthirsty end.
You've also written science fiction novels. What are these?
Yes, I've written one science fiction that I've completed, and there is a follow-up which is much, much larger. And my major problem with that at the moment is whether it should be 2 shorter books or 1 longer one.
So what's next for Bryan Pentelow?
In all honesty, that is a complete blank at the moment.
Okay.
I've 2 or 3 short stories sculling about which could stand expansion. Both of those being, well, both of the ones that are near completion are science fiction ones.
Okay.
But there are a couple of children's themes that I would also like to follow up.
And which do you like doing the best?
Whichever one I'm writing at the time.
Right.
I'm not a planner. So I get a main idea for a story, type the first word, and the characters take me from there. Yes, I would love to be organised enough to plan things out and know where it's going to end when I start, but I'm not that organised. A typical writing day is when something has occurred to me either the day before or when I get up and I need to get it down on the page. It's not always book formed. I do quite a bit of public speaking, and there are things to write for that. I also quite enjoy doing pastiches of famous poems. I started writing because I don't like sitting in the sun on a summer holiday.
Okay.
So while my wife bakes in the sun, I sit and write.
Thank you for participating in the interview. If people are interested, please go to promotingyorkshireauthors.com.